Hello everyone and welcome to another What Is Your Mod. Today we're doing a very special What Is Your Mod. Something even cooler than showing off cool mods. Today I have Xeth with me. You may know him from Mythic Realms.
Mythical.
Mythical Realms.
Yes.
Mythical Realms. Not Mythic Realms. Does it matter? I guess it matters. Okay, Mythical
It does for
Realms.
what you're.
Xeth from Mythical Realms, the mod for Master of Magic, of course. And today, he is going to be taking me, and by extension you guys, through how to add your own hero to Master of Magic.
Yay.
So see here, I'm a little bit quieter. Let's hand it over to Xeth. I'm just going to make myself disappear because otherwise I'll block Xeth's desktop. And I'm gone.
Awesome. Well, not that you're gone, but welcome everybody. So this is basically how to go through a mod. Here's the nice thing. I already have a guide written up. It's on Steam. It's also on Nexus Mods. So this is the Steam page right now. And specifically, it's under the community page for Master Magic. And if you go to guides, I have it favored, but this is what it's called, Custom Hero Modding Guide. And this will also be useful just to get an idea how to make mods in general, because there's a lot of the same skills and the format of the files that you learn through this. I'm not going to read this word for word, but it might be useful, but you can take a look at it at your leisure. So it really just goes over that. The main thing I would recommend is, although you can use the built-in Word notepad, I would say that using this Notepad Plus, which is a free download, you can just search for that and download it. It make things a lot easier, as you'll see when I start modifying files. So they actually changed the way that mods work from when the game was first released. Now they go into a different directory. So they go here now. And so that's how we have to start. So it says, you should make a file in here. So I happen to have a little shortcut I use. It goes directly to it. So you can see all my different files and stuff. There's nothing in there right now. So we just kind of take a look at what it says to do. So first folder needs to be made inside the mods folder, a unique name. So in this case, like I say with this, I'm making a hero specifically. So I go through step by step here and kind of say what you need to do. So Noob the New is our hero. So we're just going to go ahead and use that as our folder name. And why not? So there we go, first step. So each mod will have its own folder. And that way it knows which is which, so you don't get things mixed up. And this also comes in handy later on if you want to upload the mod to Steam or Nexus. You can just package up this folder. All right, so we're going to go in there. All right, now the next step is we need to have a graphic. This is kind of the hard thing out the gate, but this is just some sort of a designated file that we have. So I actually, had something that I kind of decided ahead of time, something silly. So this is what I have. It's just a little guy. Doesn't make any sense, but I know. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take it. And we're going to put it here into that folder. All right. We also need to have the settings file, which we're going to make next. This is where it starts to get into the coding stuff. So the name of that file that we put in there, like I said, it has to be referenced here. So this is just kind of a little bit of a precursor of what we're getting on. Here's the meat of where we start. So we need to make a file named setting.xml. Now, XML files are basically text files. Like I say up here, you can just rename the text file. So we'll go ahead and do a new, and then we'll do a text document. And then we're going to call it settings.xml and erase that part.
Just to
Yes.
interrupt you here.
Yes, sir.
for many people, the extensions of files are hidden.
Yes.
So we have to reveal the .text so that people can edit it, which is done in folder options.
Right. So depending on how your layout, and I'm using Windows 10, but you may have something like this, right, where you have to go and it's what is it?
Hide extensions for
Extensions.
known file types. It's down
Well,
here.
I have everything. Yeah, these are all set up. So for known file types.
Yeah.
So this normally is clicked by default, so you'll need to uncheck that.
That's the only thing you want to change here. So if you're just a
Yeah.
normal guy, just using your PC normally, there's no need to change any of the settings in here. So don't fiddle with them. Just change that
Yes.
one setting, hide extensions for known file types. And when you're done, you can set it back again. But that will allow you to see the .text or the .png or the
Right.
.jpg so that you can edit it.
And by default, the icons will look differently because I have different programs to open these. So I use View, which is another great free viewer instead of the built-in Windows one. And then I use Notepad for the XML files, which looks like this at first. So it's set up as like a nice dark screen on mine, but let's see. So this is kind of where it gets easy in some ways, but hard, but others. And it's that since I give you all these like code snippets you can see down here, and the same thing with the Nexus mod version, I actually have the files to download there. Although you can through this too, but it's probably just easiest to copy and paste everything in there as is, and then just start modifying the things that you want. That's the easiest way. Take something that's already working and then do that. Now, if something breaks during this, we'll fix it, but hopefully it's all good. So going through the different things, I say that everything's kind of in between these. These are the important fields. So you'll see that everything has like title, it matches, and you can see how it's highlighting the beginning and end. That's something that the Notepad Plus is doing to make it easier to see. You can put spaces too if it's easier for you to see things like this, just for readability.
It doesn't
Sometimes I like
matter
to do
if
that.
you add spaces then.
Right. In this case here, it's spaces. It pretty much ignores spaces in most situations. You could even have it like this if you wanted. So lots of things, but I'll go ahead and save it. And that's changed to show that's also an editor feature. So we have, looking at the different things here, these first two are just part of the basic file. You don't want to mess with those at all. The prefix is just something we had to come up with as kind of like an internal mod name. And you can see down here it gets used for the icon, which is actually something I mentioned specifically farther up here when talking about the picture. All right. So we can call it whatever we want. Noob the new, the title. So this is also, I tried to keep the name and the title the same. There's, just so that there's consistency. Description is also what would show up, for example, here. If you do it on Steam. Also, it's going to show up in the game where there's a mod manager in the game that has a little description. And there's currently, I don't know if it's going to be changed or what, but there's about a limit of 7,000 characters that you can put in the description. So if you're making a big mod, you got to keep that in mind.
1,000
So
characters.
Yeah.
Seems
Well,
like a lot.
my at 7,000, yeah, it seems like a lot. My Mythical Realms README file when put in there was 23,000. It's characters actually, not words. So I had to basically say, here, just visit the website in mine and put a basic little overview. So of course your name, just whatever, what you want to be known by, and then what version you're on. So always good to keep updating your versions if you do updates. And then this is the weird part because it's the graphic. This is the icon that will show in the game manager. So you have to have this match the prefix followed by the colon and then the file that you're using. So we have noob mod, so we're good there. And then these type of things you'll see when working with XML files, which is what these are. They'll usually have this, starting and ending. And sometimes you'll have this, what they call nesting effect. So the opening is at the top and the bottom here, but then you have openings and endings in the middle. So it's basically saying everything that's inside of this mod settings is within here. So that gets into more stuff later on. There's not really much of that we have to deal with, thankfully, but sometimes that can be confusing. So that file's done. That one's an easy one because I cheated since I'm copying everything, which is, kind of the plan. All right, so we go here. Now, this is talking about the folder that I create, a new one, database folder. So this is where we're going to put the majority of our files. You can see here, you can jump to the different file types. There's also script files. I'm not going to talk about that, I don't think, unless people want to, but that's like the more even nerdy coding stuff where you can change major things too. With the database, though, it lets you basically set all the different settings for most things. So it says to make all of these files here. These are what's needed for a hero. If you were to make a race, for example, you would need a different file, a race file. Excuse me, a race file. So those are things that, we can always talk about later if we want to have another one, or you can always ask me or send me a message or whatnot. All right, so we have these files. We're also going to do the optional files here. So the group file. So same thing, we're going to make a file and we want to copy this stuff in there. So I'll go ahead and close this here. And what I usually like to do is sometimes I'll just like copy this straight up, but we can always just do another new item. And I probably should have done my copy paste here, right? Go in there. And actually for this one, we're just doing database as the file or the directory folder first. It's in here that we need to make it. Sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So I was on this one. So we created the folder here. Let's see. And then this is talking about if you're not going to use the information that's in here, you want to use the other game file information. So for example, like I said, you're making a race or something, or you want to take an example that's already in game. And I have a little shortcut, of course, to it where it goes to this location, only because I use it all the time. And there's a database here. And you can look, these are the things that are in the game. And for example, subrace here, this is a huge file. This has every unit in the game, all the like stats and information and stuff in there. So just as an example, it's a good idea to be able to see these kinds of things. So you get an idea ahead of time what we're striving for, I guess, in a way. A lot of this got some DLC information here. I was trying to pick somebody that might be a little more familiar here. So, for example, we have like here's some of the goblin race guys, the summon boar special features, but you can see there's lots of tags. So that is jumping ahead a bit, but that gives you an idea where we're going. The meat of it is there. Okay, so back here, we're still looking at the group file. This is the first step, and I just go through alphabetically. Subrace is near the end, so that's kind of the, like I said, the important one. All right, so I give a little description. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So just to clarify, we're just making this database folder, and then we're gonna create all these files. And
right,
we're just gonna copy and paste the stuff that you have put in this guide into each file.
Yep, that's what we're doing this time. That other file I was showing, the base game file, works as a good resource for where to copy from for any of these, because it'll have more information. So if, say, for example, you wanted to make a hero that's very much like Warax with his abilities, you could copy and paste him and then just modify the parts you wanted. That'll save you quite a bit of time in having the stuff already set up similar to how that hero is. So that's a good shortcut instead of doing this. I mean, I set up with this. I don't even remember. I think, Zaldrun as my base. So it's just a basic starting hero. But yeah, that way you do have other resources and you can see what the numbers are and what the names of the skills are. Sometimes they're spelled a little differently because there's British English sometimes American English. I don't get anything about other languages. So your mileage may vary there, but there are files for that too. But all the like core, I think, game files are going to be in English. and it's the localization files where you can put the different language for the descriptions of things. This is where we make what shows on the screen. All right, so we have our first file that we're going to do in this folder. And see, now I've got too many of these things already open. That's how it goes. So we're in the database folder. We're going to go ahead and make a new text file, XML file technically, and then we're going to open it up. All right. So, it has to start with this, and there's this information. Sometimes it's really simple little stuff like this. So the main difference with this is determining whether or not it's a regular hero, or in this case, this line changes if it's a champion type hero, where you'd use the summon champion spell in order to get them. So that's really the main purpose of this. I think there might even be some events related to it. Now, same thing here, it's all kind of clustered. So sometimes you make it pretty. You'll see in the game files, it tends to do things like make it look more like this, where it indents to show you when you're nested inside so that the tags close and whatnot. So that's kind of just to make it pretty, really. Okay, so we've done that. There's not really much to it. Like I said, there's just this. So with this file, we save it and close it. Go to the next one. So here we go with the localization file, which is basically just fancy for what the game shows you. And what we're going to do is, this is primarily used as a description for their kind of like little bio. I make a little note that this brackets or curly brackets with a 0, it gives the name. So when you're reading it, it will give whatever name you have in here as part of the description. So in here I say, he's new to the game. Hopes you let him stay in your army until the end of the campaign instead of killing him off via Skydrake suicide run because you'd rather have War Axe. So as people know, you can only have 6 heroes in the game normally. So him being a starting one, you might want to be inclined to get rid of him. But we don't want to do that to him. All right, so another new file. All right. And go back to the Steam. So same thing, makes it easy to copy. And I'll kind of do the same thing here where I indent it to make it all pretty. It just kind of helps to see where the beginning and end is. Save it. So you pick these names. So English, obviously. Now, the one thing that's a little tricky about this file that I mentioned at the beginning, I should say, it talks about that the header has to be different than the base game. So I put this in addition. So normally you'll have this main group header that matches whatever the file is. And then you'll have a second header that has kind of like what subsection it's dealing with. So in this case, it's localization, description, English. But for the descriptions, you have to give it a unique name. So I usually just put whatever I'm calling the mod at the end there, and it goes down here too. And of course, whatever English, well, language, English in this case. Now, these are the various AI file or AI hero names. So when player gets it, he's going to see Noob the New. When the AI wizard gets this character or hero, it's going to be Nube and A-E-O, whatever. Unoriginal, it's just to be silly. So sometimes when you'll see something like, oh, hey, that's War Axe, but he has a different name because AI, that's why. It's because a different name's given here. You could, I guess, theoretically give the same name to all of these. It's not a big deal, but just something that the game does to make it different. And then this is right here is the description. So when you are in the game and you mouse over the little kind of description question mark about like, hey, what's the background? That's where the background is. So you put your little bio in there. And then that's it. So for at least a hero. When you do spells or other things, you have to put what they do in here specifically too. So this file gets pretty big. All right. So are we good so far, or I don't know if anybody had a question. Okay.
No
I
questions.
put everybody to sleep.
I am very intently listening to this.
All right. So we got all that. Now we're on to the sound file. This is my pet peeve file, I guess I should say, because it seems like there's a lot of copy pasting that I do that almost always seems to be something missed in here, which is just a pain for me sometimes.
So you're not realistically going to make your own. Well, maybe you could make your own sounds, but most people realistically are not going to make their own sounds, right? So you're just going to
Yeah.
use the pre-existing stuff.
And that's what I actually talked about here. So this is using the pre-existing stuff right here. So I'm copy and pasting for that. And we'll do the same thing here. This is the same thing where it requires the header to have that special extra on there or a different name. These are the only two files, the description and the sound one, that need that. I don't know why these have to be special, but they do. So with these here, the easiest way is assuming you're just using another hero's sound files. You have the hero and then backslash the hero, and then it's going to match here. You can see like attack melee, attack ranged, and that way the sounds match. And we actually will put these settings in later on in one of the other files. This talks about, if you put your own, basically you would have to create your own directory where your file where you're putting. So for example, go into the game folder, there's a sound folder, and it already knows to start here. And you can see like Ares a hero, Alora's a hero. And then we were using Zaldron. So his sound files are all here. So it's referencing these.
So if I wanted my own sound, I would have to use SFX noob in this case,
Right.
and then start
Yep.
putting my WAV files in there.
Exactly. Yep. So say here, then you would reference, then it would look like this instead. Noob to reference the noob directory or folder. I'm old school, so I call them directories. But then that's how you would do it. If you have, maybe you downloaded it from somewhere or something, right? Okay. So that's pretty much it. The only one that's a little weird is the movement here. So horse move, it's actually in the base directory, so you don't need to tell it which. There's also a horse heavy move. So if we look here, there's even a couple of them. I don't know how different they are, but these are the ones that are all in there. So the default for most everybody is this. But then sometimes you have, for example, Fang has his own move because he's flying on a dragon. So it doesn't sound like a horse. But you could use anything. You could make your hero sound like a djinn. You could make it sound like a unicorn. That's whatever you want for sounds. So there's a lot of creativity, but otherwise it's pretty simple. Once you kind of get used to it. So that's it for that one. So spells. This one actually is optional because you can make heroes that don't use spells. We're going to do that just to make sure we're covering everything, of course, here.
Dredgy says this is cool as you force this knowledge into his mind.
Well, as long as one person's getting benefit, then I'm happy. All right. So here's the same thing. Copying this. Now, this might be a little obvious what it is, but I will, of course, explain it. So we're going to make everything pretty. All right. So this is for each hero who can cast spells has their own little personal spell book of spells that they can use in addition to all of your wizard spells. And a lot of times they can be something that you don't even have access to. So in this case, you see we're going to give him healing, holy armor, and Lionheart. So if I'm a death mage and I have noob, then I can heal things. So that's a nice little thing to have. And in order to basically pick these spells, they look like this. I usually like to, again, which is why I have this, because I go into here, into this database, and I pick the similar thing here, spells. And there's a list of all the spells in the game and stuff you can't even get. But so, for example, we have Lionheart. I can look. So what I would do is, oh, that's what it's called. And sometimes you have to figure out. So if you wanted to give them, well, I don't think you could give, that's not a combat spell, but that one is. So there's an underscore in there. So you'd have to know, is it raised dead as one word? Is it with an underscore? So your best bet is to copy and then just paste it over there. And then that way you're getting whatever the actual game is going to use. But that's an easy way. I do that a lot to like, oh, what's that spell called again? And, sometimes they have slightly funny names, but usually you can guess them.
One thing
So
to uh,
that's, uh,
one thing to keep in mind before you give your hero a million spells is to remember to give them some mana, right? To cast it with.
yes, that's coming. Actually, the sub race, which is the big, see all this is the meaty one. This is where the majority of the stuff goes. So that'll happen here. We're actually done with this. So our new, we're going to go ahead and do the sub race. Now, I just noticed I don't have a consistent naming pattern here. It doesn't matter what the names of the files are as long as they're an XML. I don't even think they need to be called DB. So this is a slight, like I left it in there. You used to need to have the file name have something different because you put it in the same directory as the spell. Now you don't, since it's its own directory. So it can just stay there. So we can actually do just that. But when I'm working with multiple ones, I like to usually have this extra name in there. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do new. Oh, no, that's not what I highlighted the wrong thing. Okay. So yeah, this can be a lot of typing otherwise. So I have a lot of descriptions about this. The biggest thing actually has to do with some small things. So let me just go ahead and go through it line by line after we have the meat of it in here. That's probably the best way to do it.
All this talk of meat is making me hungry.
Uh, all right. So Hero Noob, he's noob. You can see the tags. So it's just basically describing him. So description, this is what is going to go into that localization file. This tells it what the name's going to be, so it'll show in the game. This is the bio description thing. And then this is the graphic part. And I'm going to get back to that at the very end because this is actually, well, no, I'll do it now actually because the next line doesn't make sense. So you can put, for example, if I wanted him to look like Zaldron, I could just put Zaldron in there. Otherwise, you have to put whatever you're going to have your graphic name be in all lowercase. And we'll go to what the actual graphic is. This kind of jumps ahead just a little bit. But we have noob full, which is the big size. That's what he's going to look like when you're inspecting. And it has to be, and I put this in the information too, it has to be this size in pixels and a PNG file.
So it has to be
And then,
1024 by 1024, which is actually
yes,
a kind of unusual resolution. What
yeah,
happens
that
if it's
is
not
kind
that? Does it just fail?
I haven't actually tried. So,
Presume
but
that
yeah,
it
I put it in
fails.
there.
Yeah, your
Yeah,
picture has to be exactly that. So don't get
yeah,
that wrong.
it'll probably warp it, is my guess, to make it fit because there's a couple other things I've done with the wizards that makes it like that. So it's very possible. Then the other thing is focus usually on the face, is how heroes are done. Units are on the whole unit just shrunk down. And then this one has to be 256 by 256 pixels, which I also put in there. And this is going to be that little icon you see when you're looking at your army stack. So that's what that's for.
We're getting a maximum value out of that 8-bit integer there.
Yeah. Yeah. So this right here, you don't actually put the underscore full into this file, but it has to be in the file name for the picture. And that's kind of what I go into here. That's all of this. So there's a lot of description of stuff to read here that's very important that's going over this exact same information. So we have noob. So when you decide you're going to use your own custom graphic and not, say, for example, Zalzran, the game then has to know what 3D model to use to represent that character. So in this case, I picked to make him look like Zaldron in the game. So when he's guys moving around the map and in battles, he's going to look like Zaldron. That's something that I think there's some stuff being worked on to be able to import 3D models. I'm not much of a 3D model person, so I just kind of leave that alone and pick one from the game.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
that's a very big ask for any
Yeah,
any
that's
mod
a
of
whole
yours.
other step.
So don't worry about that too much. And just to
Yeah,
reiterate, what the game is expecting is a picture of your hero's face that is 256 pixels by 256 pixels, and then another picture with underscore full added to the name that is 1024 pixels by 1024 pixels.
right.
So, for
And more
example, it would be
importantly,
Edmund and Edmund underscore full would be my two images, with Edmund being the
yes.
smaller one and Edmund underscore full being the larger one.
And they all have to be in lowercase except for the underscore full has to be in capitals. So that's why I say even here.
Yeah,
But the
this
other important detail is it has to go into an images folder and not in the database folder. So
yeah,
that's
it's
what we're
this
going to do
bit.
right
You
now.
you really got to be exact with this bit, otherwise
Yes.
it will throw a spanner into your work.
So with these two, we're going to go ahead and we're going to take them and we're going to put them in here. So they're happy. Now, getting artwork, that's a whole other thing. So we're not touching that. But back to the coding. So here we are again with the alternate names. These are for the AI, because we already defined what these actually mean, but this is the code's race. He's a hero. It's its own race. Icon hero is the little pin that sticks in the map on the battle to make it look like it's like a star. And there's another one for champions. So let's see, I think I mentioned that as well in here. Yeah, talk about the hero icon. But you can change that. You can, it's just a little different. So the majority of everything from here to really, I guess, here is the game stuff. So movement, all heroes is by default move by 4. There's a few exceptions, one at least I know of. Can he walk? Yes. So you can also add other things. So flying, swimming are the other options that can be in here. So this is just kind of the standard what you would have for everybody. Upkeep in gold. So 2 gold every turn. Have to pay noob to be part of your team. Recruitment cost. So he's 100 gold by default. And then fame required is 0, so you can get him right away. So we're making him easy to obtain. This is so he can heal. This is really only a setting like undead or death units. This would be set to false. They're the only ones. So if for some reason you wanted to make maybe an undead hero that couldn't heal, then you'd put that to false. Gains experience points, pretty self-explanatory. False as well if you don't, like fantastic creatures. This whole format is used for all units in the game, not just heroes. So that's why these things are there. All right, so here we get into kind of like the more meaty numbers. So melee attack value, he's got a 5. Ranged attack, 5. He has 5 ammunition, and that's to start because in this case he actually has. No, wait, he doesn't. I was going to say we can do a magical. I'm sorry, he does. It's a magical range attack. I know it's in a weird spot. So with magical range attacks, as you level up, you'll get more ammo. This is just what he starts with at level 0. And then you have defense score 4, resist score 10, hit points 8. So these are all things that you play with whatever you want to make your hero. I've seen people make some really obscene numbers that are game breaking, but just look at what's already there and copy. Now these are pretty much, you probably don't want to touch them much. Every unit in the game has a base. This is a 30% is how that's represented in the math term. It's the 0.3. So these are 30% chance of each melee attack, sword or shield or bow hitting or blocking. You can adjust them. Just be aware that's a pretty big adjustment. Even just going to like 0.4 or down to 0.2, it's a pretty big change, even though it's a small number. And then hero class is to say that he's a hero. Now I'm trying to remember because it's been a minute with the hero class. So the other thing is instead, here you can make him champion class. This is if you want to make him champion so that the summon champion spell works for him. So there's some consistency there. I believe that one of these functions works and the other doesn't, but just be consistent with both. They're either both champion or both hero here and in the file previously where we mentioned it. All right.
So
So
if you like,
yes.
if for example you wanted to make a very defensive hero, this is what I do: is try to adjust things in pairs, right? So this is me talking about game balance here, game balance design. If you have a hero and he's got a certain amount of stats and he's known to be balanced, you think, "Oh, I want a defensive hero." If you, for example, adjust his ability to block up by point 0.2, then maybe adjust his ability to hit down by the same by point 0.2. So you're kind of keeping the hero at the same kind of value as it had before. You're just kind of changing what it's good at and what it's bad at. That's just an approach to balance that can sometimes, get good results. Not necessarily saying that this is a flawless idea, but if you're new to balance, you take a hero that you feel has a good balance to it, and to just say, oh well, I want this hero, but I want it to be like a better at magic and worse at ranged or melee or whatever, and just mirror those values. So when you bring one up, bring the other one down, and so on. And I find that at least prevents you from making some kind of obscenely overpowered hero. But that's just a tip from me.
Yeah, it's a good tip. With this game, you're probably better off adjusting the main numbers and not so much the percentage of those numbers. So if you wanted a defensive hero, you'll find that 4 and 5 are pretty typical. You'll sometimes see 6, but these do go up quite a bit with equipment, spells, level. There's also abilities. It's questionable whether or not those are balanced. Master Magic is well known for not being very well balanced. So,
it's
uh,
it has decisive attributes in a number of characters. Let's put it that way.
yes, yeah, it's interesting, but you've got so those are your choices there, and you can always fiddle with them and then go back and change it if you think it's too strong or too weak. So it works out. All right, now here's the meat of the different skills. So I know we're back to meat. The hero level, you've got to put it in there. So the hero levels, there's actually a different one for unit level because heroes can have more levels than regular units. So that's why it's specified here. Want to have your heroes a melee attack, they all should be able to do that. All heroes normally should have an enchanted weapon 1 so that they can hit and get through weapon immunity. That's just sort of the basic how the game made all the heroes anyways. Now, in this case, I gave him a nature ranged attack. It's magic, so shooting a magic bolt that is nature magic. And it matters for which spells that you're hitting, or like I should say, against certain things that may have defenses against types of magic. So if it's a resist elements, it gives a bonus or elemental armor against these types of attacks, then it will do that. If it was sorcery, for example, then it would have no effect. So that's a small distinction, but you can also choose a normal ranged attack, which is what the regular bow users have. So again, if you go back to the regular subrace file in the main directory, with all this, the main games directory, you can just take anything you want out of the subrace and copy and paste it. So even if you wanted to give it like a catapult type attack, which is a boulder, it might be a little strong, but hey, it's available. So you have those options. And then here's the part where you mentioned about having enough mana to actually cast spells. So anything that's going to cast a spell needs a caster ability with a number. And these are in increments of 2.5, which if we were to represent this another way, it would be, you would see it as this if it's the next step down. But we did 10. So he's going to start with 10 mana. And then as he levels up, he's supposed to gain 10 per level. But after level 4, it starts to decrease. It's some weird change that the devs made that I don't approve of. Sorry. I actually undid
Oh
that so
no,
that it's a
it's
consistent
slightly
10.
different. It's slightly
It
different.
is.
Oh no, how dare they? No,
How
it's
dare they?
it's
But
yeah, no, it's everything is moddable, so you can
yeah, so you can change it.
grognard it all to your heart's content. Right, sorry.
I just changed it so that the 10 was consistent. It made sense. But, it's a small change. Either way, this way it still starts with 10 regardless. And then you can make the base more or less. And then here is where you have a skill pack. So this is kind of a weird thing, but this is basically the random abilities. So some heroes have them, some don't. And for each one you want to give, in this case it's two. There's 2 lines. So I could give them 5 by just having 5 of those lines. And it will pick from the list of available skills for the type you pick. In this case, I put any. So he can get any of the available skills, which is all of them. There is one for fighters or for mages where they get those specific ones. And then there's even a special 1 or 2 in there for characters like Tauren and Alora where they have spells, but they're melee characters, so they don't get the arcane power, which would give them a bonus to their ranged attack. So little extra stuff. As you just go through, you can copy this from whichever hero you like, again, from the main file. But this way he could get something like leadership, he could get agility, he could get might, he could get arcane power. So lots of things.
So you might want to,
And then
change that to like a specific skill or something if you don't want them to
that
be
goes
so
here.
Okay, right.
That, yeah, the specific skills are here. So in this case, yeah, that's good. I probably should have put one of those in here. But if we go back into here and we pick,
just to clarify for everybody,
yeah,
you're doing this because you're wanting the hero to potentially gain a random skill. But what if you want it to gain a specific skill?
Yep. So let's take Shinbo. So Shinbo has invisibility and Blade Master. So he specifically is always going to have these. And then in addition, he gets 2 fighter picks. That could be anything that falls in the fighter group. The best resource really is still the old games wiki to be able to see what skills there are. So you can look up random skills there and it'll show you which ones fall in these groups. You can also, of course, make skills. Like in my Mythical Realms mod, I have a bunch of new skills with an update coming with even more. And I had to add those into the group. So I had to redefine this skill group to put those skills so they could show up. And of course, some heroes get them anyways, like this, where I forced it in there. So that's how you do that. All right. So the spell pack is the spell book that we already defined in the spells database file. So this just basically tells them, hey, use that spell book. And then here's a fun one. So this is the equipment. Normally you have the weapon slot, sometimes the armor slot, and then everybody usually has a miscellaneous slot. Typically you'll see this for a melee hero, where it's a melee weapon, and then they get armor and a miscellaneous. This one lets them use melee weapons and the staves and wands. So they get to choose which one of those. It gives them the flexibility. And then if you were doing a mage character, for example, I don't know if it's spellcaster, but you would actually have 2 of these slots. And I actually have some characters that are dual wielders. So I have them look like this, where they're not using armor, but they still get a ring slot, and then they have 2 weapons. So that's, you can kind of fool around with that. I guess you could give them 3 weapons if you wanted to, but that kind of gets into the balance thing.
Yeah.
So trading
you
armor.
Can only have 3 items though.
Right.
That's hard.
I haven't tried it. Yes.
Yeah, that's hard coded. So you can only have 3 items, and you can make a slot only dual, like 2 different types. It can't be like 3, for example.
Well, you could put all 3. So you could put different things. They could be all miscellaneous. They could be all armor.
No. What I mean is you can't have melee _ spellcaster _ armor.
Oh, no. There's specific ones these are defined as. So armor, miscellaneous, melee, spellcaster. I guess spellcaster, and then there's also bow for the bow users.
Just clarifying for anybody who feels like they could put. They was just thinking, oh yeah, I could have armor _ miss _ melee _ like, no, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
You have to choose one item. It's just that some of the 1 items, if you will, are actually 2 items, but they're one thing from the list of things it can be.
Right. The weapon is the only one that kind of has that flexibility. I suppose we could bug the mods and maybe they could do something where eventually it's an any slot. And then that way you just put whatever that you want in there. But okay, so tags, we have a gender tag in here. This has no effect in game from what I'm aware of, although there are sometimes some characters that have, I think, unknown and females the other one. I don't remember if there's another, but those are the three that I know for sure. You can look through the different tags there. And then here's where we define those audio files again, where we're using this. Um, so a lot of times it's easy just to like, okay, what did I call that again? Or did I remember from, was it in here? So I just copy and, I would copy it over here and then I would paste it and into the different things. So the one thing that's a little different about this character versus maybe others is that if you, and I have this in the notes as well in the guide, is that if you're making, say, for example, a straight melee character, you will not need to have the ranged, you will not need to have ammunition, and you won't need to have ranged attack chance. It doesn't hurt things, I think, to have it. If you do, it'll give them that attack. But if you want them not to have a ranged attack, you just take them out.
Yeah.
So that's really the main difference. And then the closing tag here.
Just to quickly answer a question in the chat. This is a guide to make your own hero. So when this is finished, the guide is here, of course, and we're going through it right now. When this stream is finished, we will put this up on the YouTube channel, and you'll be able to follow it through from beginning to end to make your very own hero exactly how you want. So no one will have to do it for you.
And then again, this is on Steam.
Who's going to make this hero for me? You can. You can make it.
Yes.
This is what we're here
You can do it.
Okay. Sorry. Continue.
Yep. And again, this guide available through Steam. Also, I have, like I said, Mod Nexus, but this is a good spot. All right. So we actually completed everything here with this. So we're on to the next one, which actually is the last, I guess you could call it the mandatory one. And I say I guess because I know something about it. Just learned actually after making the guide here. Why did I do that? It did not copy and paste. Let's try again. I have it set to a button on my mouse and sometimes it doesn't want to cooperate apparently.
Sorry, here's a quick question. When will we be able to create 3D models? That is really hard to do. Honestly, you need specialist 3D modeling software to actually do that. And I don't think any sort of normal person is going to be able to do that. So I wouldn't count on that being a thing. I'm not saying it can't be done, but if you can make 3D models for the game, then you're probably an industry professional with not much time in your life. Not to overstate it here, but there are some things that are just really hard to mod. And when you actually look at mods in all kinds of games, the actual 3D graphics is one of the few things that almost never gets changed, and that's simply because it's very difficult to do. So I would not concern yourself with that because it's just not going to happen. Sorry.
All right. Yeah, this is a file where it's supposed to be tags for quests. I found out that this is actually an unused feature in the game. So I just show it here for completeness sake, but you can actually not even make this file. But since it's so easy to just copy paste, you don't even put anything here. You just copy and paste this placeholder my tag. So it was never fully developed. It's just 1 and 2 for your character name. That's it. Like I said, it'll work without, but I just keep it in there for completeness sakes. Okay, so here's the part where I think we really want people are like, I want to play my hero now. So how do we do that? And that's where this comes in. So the difficulty, which I know kind of sounds a little difficulty, but no, it's not that. So wow, okay. So this is what allows your hero to actually be selectable at the beginning of the game, which is, hey, everybody wants to make it. Sometimes these things line up a little funny. I should actually do that. But normally the game has this as a default, has Vashon as the only hero that you can get. So you can actually use this to add the other heroes into the game. You just need to make sure that you always have a none option. And the none option should have a different collection number then whichever you pick here. For zero, I, these aren't even really used for anything. This one hero should have this, and I just leave it on Bashan. Basically, there's a quick start button on the game. When you press it, it just auto selects that you have that hero. You could actually make quick start be none, so that way just by default doesn't pick that. But we've went ahead, we put noob in here. So it was just easy enough to copy and paste Bashan, and then I just leave out the quick start part.
So here we're talking about when you start a new game. There's the bit in the new game options where it says which hero you can start with, and this edits that.
Yes. So this gives another entry on that menu for him.
So you can
And like I
start
said, you
with your shiny custom hero right from the very
exactly.
beginning.
Yep. So that's what we are, and we just like I said, copy and paste that. You can put like I said, other heroes. You do the same thing. We pretty much just copy the same line. You'd have to go in and get the UI name out of the UI file and all that. So that's a little bit more. You poke around files on your own. You'll see how that works out. All right. So the other thing is, of course, the UI part, like I was saying, because in order to have it show up, you need to have it say something. Otherwise, it gives some ugly message in that little drop down screen. So we just try and avoid those types of things from happening. But I know when I first started doing a lot of this, it was the thing I forgot usually first. And so things would show up with these weird messages in game. All right. So this tells it, so it was that UI noob from the other file that we had. So this basically is telling the game screen, okay, when I go to the drop down menu, what's it going to say for that hero name? So noob, I could change it to be, I even mentioned, noob the new, which is like his official name and title, but the space is very small on the screen. So just keeping the name is the best way to go. So, and then this one, since it's a localization file, also needs to have the extra tag differentiation on it. So, gotta love it. Now, the funny thing to note about all this is now that we're done with all the regular these files, you can actually lump them all into one giant file. I find the different files to be much easier to manipulate, and if there's something wrong, it'll tell you which file it's in and what line if you go to one of the error logs. And I should say I don't hope we have error, but if we do, that way we can see what happens.
Oh, is it
So
gonna work? Have you done it
yeah, is it
properly?
gonna work? Have I done it? Have I made the guide properly? I was half asleep when I
Under the
updated it.
pressure
So
of people watching, have
yeah.
you correctly executed the guide? Okay.
Yeah. So here we're talking about, what to do in the game. And then these files it's going to generate. So in here, so this is our file. There's going to be 3 more files whenever you make a unit, such as a hero. And it's like an evaluation file, and it uses it to determine the strength for like purposes of when you do that combat. It says, hey, do you want to do an auto combat? It knows how strong it is. So it does a little evaluation and it keeps it there. What the value of it is for combat purposes, and also how it affects the AI when you're doing tactical combats. So it'll make these little files. They don't take very long, but if you make a lot of units, it might take a minute or two. Like when I do Mythical Realms, it takes a couple minutes. But for just one unit, it shouldn't be all that bad. So we have everything there. And then this is just if you need to get a hold of me, I'll be happy to help you out with stuff. Let's see what happens. I'll make a quick note that anybody using Steam, this version number here, if you click on this, it will take you to the most current patch notes. People always ask, where is it? Where is it? Click on that.
Yep. The patch notes are
Yep.
right there.
Yep. I didn't want to go into it because it'll bring up the browser and just be a mess right now. So
Is it gonna work? Is it gonna work?
it just, if it makes it to the halfway point, usually you're good. All
Oh,
right. So
looks
we
like it
didn't get
worked.
any error messages. That's a good sign.
New game, new game. Let's see it. Let's see it.
Well, wait, we can't do new game first. We got to go to mods. We've
Oh
got to
yes, of
enable
course.
the mod. So here he is. You can see the little picture that I put. So you got to do this. All right. And then, of course, the game's going to say, okay, you got to restart. Okay, fine. We're going to restart. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to restart. Try it again.
I'm excited. I'm excited now.
And now it's possible we might get errors now that the mod's enabled. So there's that. It checks different things at different times. So see, we got an error.
Oh,
Yeah. So that actually went to the screen pretty quickly. But let's see. So I actually have shortcuts to where the logs are because I have this happen all the time. So it gives all this interesting stuff about, whatever your thing is, and I try and find where the error is. All right. So it says there's something wrong with the DB difficulty.xml. So this is why I like having the files named different things so that
Okay.
we don't have issues.
So
So
where's
we'll go
that
into
log file?
here.
Sorry, just for everyone else debugging
Okay,
your.
yes, the log files. That's good to know. So properties. So by default, it's in pretty much the same directory. It's local low Muha. It's your thing, and then your user app data local low Muha games mom, and then gamelog.txt, and
So
then there's also a player log.
just to be clear to everybody, that
Yes,
it exists in local low, in app data. That
yes,
is a
local low.
hidden. That is typically a hidden folder. So in
Yeah,
order to get to that folder, what you have to do is, if you open up a address bar anywhere,
yeah. Well, here,
yeah,
yeah,
if you double click in that address bar so you can type,
right.
if you put percentage app data percentage,
Oh,
which
you
you
oh,
can
you mean
just
for
delete,
the
yeah,
whole
just
thing?
delete. If you just delete that and you just put percentage app data percentage,
Then it takes you
it will
to,
take you to the app data folder. This is one of the ways to get to it because you cannot see it normally.
yeah. Okay, so let's take a look. We had difficulty. My guess is I forgot a little tag somewhere, and it might be this one. So one of the nice things about the log is that a lot
Oh,
of times it'll
you
tell you
forgot a
where.
pointy bracket.
Something like that, yeah. So it tells you here, line 3. So line 3, and it's probably not liking this. So we need to probably do something like that.
Yeah,
Problem is it makes this part messed up.
yeah. Just to
So
note,
what I
people,
like
it
to,
was like it said line 3, but the error was actually on line 2. You actually want to look above and below
yeah,
where it said it is, because sometimes it's the line before or the line after.
now you can see this is doesn't have one here. So now is the name correct? And so I may have to put one there. Like I either didn't put that into the guide or didn't copy paste. Probably didn't put it in the guide, right? Difficulty. Was it this one here? It shows
Yeah,
it
yeah, that's what you're
here.
seeing.
It just didn't copy paste for some
No, no, no.
reason.
If you look at difficulty add hero, there's no bracket there, and then name equals UI add hero, there's no bracket there either.
Okay, so
It's that, yeah,
right.
that those 3 lines.
This is this is one. Yeah, that's why. So there should be one here is where I put it, and then here.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
That's what's missing.
So I'll have to update the guide to do that. That'll be easy enough to do.
We
So
found it, boys. No, it's good that
found
it
it.
happened because it shows the
Exactly.
process of finding the error and fixing
That's
it.
why I like it. Now, just to be on the safe side, we can take a look and see because it's all made kind of cutesy here with the indents and whatnot. So if we're doing, uh, what is this? This is difficulty add hero. Um, so
Yep, you can see it at the top there.
whoops.
Difficulty add
Oh,
hero.
yep, there it is. So we can look to see because notice that it's the bracket actually is like that. It's kind of in a weird spot. So it's supposed to be sort of like that. It's just it's done a little. See how there's no bracket at the end of it in here. So me adding that doesn't actually match what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be like that. So we have so to make it make a little more sense. We can have it in there. We can have it, and then I think what was it? Also, I think there's supposed to be a space, but then that way it makes it a lot closer. Even though it's one line with one starting and one ending, it's for some reason that's split into multiple lines. It's the spaces that don't matter, right? It just makes it confusing at times. So now this actually should be the way that it is. So that's why I always double check
Yeah,
against what the file
that
is.
bracket next to name is wrong actually. If you go to the name
The
one,
which line you talk about, the actual in-game.
name doesn't have a square bracket on the left. And then if you look at your other one, it does.
The
Where it says
name
name
right
equals
here.
UI add hero.
Hmm.
There's no square bracket on the left hand side. but there is on yours.
Right, because I was trying to do it the other way where I was putting it. So our analysis initially was wrong to put one there and there. It actually needs to be like this, which is, I'm not sure how that was different from what it was. I'm just checking. The only thing I could think is that maybe it wanted a space and the enter counts sort of as a space. But this actually looks to be more correct now, at least. That's why we like to check these things, because it even has it set to a different indent. It's kind of bizarre that it does that, but sometimes you'll find things like that in there. But I think now that actually makes it look correct.
All right, let's try it.
See, I like to kind of toggle, and sometimes you can get it to line up. But all right, so we updated it, and we'll go ahead and close our game log out, and we won't have to go through re-enabling steps. We just fire away. And yes, it is good that that happens to see, because a lot of times it is simple little things like brackets or periods or whatever.
Yes, it's
All
working.
right, it like that. Now let's make sure it's still enabled.
Yep,
Okay.
cool.
So
New
now
game.
we're going to new game. All right, starting hero. There he is.
There's noob.
All right. Now I'm just gonna burn through the choices here like I do when I test and pick all the defaults and click. So I get tired of seeing Merlin after a while.
We never get
I also,
tired of seeing Merlin.
that's true. Hey, I love his "I will suffer no fools." Oh, that's great.
Ain't so tough without his round table.
Yeah. Well, he's in a different world now, so he's gotta fight for his survival against other wizards of similar strength.
Dredgy says his brain has been
Whoa.
cooked.
All right, so here he is.
There he
Noob the
is.
new.
There's your new
There's the
hero.
little icon. Go here. We can look. So he had two random abilities. He picked up agility and leadership. So that's from agility and then the leadership when he levels up. We can look. So he can use the staff or the sword, melee. The armor shield, that's always just from armor, and then the miscellaneous weapon. His spell book. So I happen to pick a life wizard, but he automatically has the ones I took. There's some overlap, I think. So I probably should pick like a death wizard or something. But then he's ready to go. Now, if you look at him, that's as close as I can get. That's him. He's Zaldron, I guess. I just picked that because I thought it was silly, and then we'll go ahead and get into a fight. He's going to get completely creamed here, but we want to see him.
You're feeding him to fireballs.
Yes. So you see, he moves around. I mean, this is what you have to do now. We have to test. Can he actually shoot his magic? Can he actually use a spell? So there goes his attack. He was able to shoot his magic. That's great. The sounds are working when he moves. You hear the attacks. All right. He has 10 mana right now, which unfortunately means he can't cast any of the spells that we.
I told you. I was like, don't
He
forget
needs
to give him
more.
enough mana to cast some spells.
Well, most of them you want to start. 10's actually kind of on the higher end. It's definitely on the high end for a starting hero. We're just going to go in here. The other thing we actually want to test is getting annihilated for the sounds. So he's making attacks just fine. And he dies just fine. So I would call that a success.
Woo!
All right, so there's one other step that's not part of the guide that is useful, I think,
All right.
is that you want to share it with the world. How do you do that?
And
We
now,
do.
for the first time, we can do this. We can actually share it with the world. So go on in.
So then we go into the mod manager, you select the mod that you want, and then you have to select the visibility. So public is everybody, obviously, friends only, private only, you can see it. So you have to pick one of these for your mod. So I don't know, this is a pretty stupid mod, but I'm going to go ahead and put it privately just so I can go through the other iterations and then publish. And it's like, okay, is this what you really want to do? And then it'll take a moment to upload the files. Usually 3 takes the longest. I think it's the artwork.
Ping.
All right. And now it's done. So here's the kind of weird part now is that since you're also the author of the mod, where it's sitting in the folder, it sees this as a mod, but Steam installs mods to different locations too. So if we go back into, whoops, I didn't want to do that. I just want to go back into Steam. So if we go to the workshop, to look and see, is it going to show up here? It might take a moment to show up. So with it being private, I would assume that it still allows me to do this. Is actually the first time I've tried private.
Yeah, it should do. You should be able to
Okay.
see it as the author.
It'll
And you can
it'll
change
take a moment maybe.
You can change its visibility from private to public within Steam
Right.
itself.
Right. There's a, well, you have to be able to get to it to change it, obviously. So there's my other mod. I thought there was a way that you could see mods through here, but doesn't want to seem to show up. We have to wait.
It will take some time to show up on the workshop, but it will show up on the workshop. And if you go back to your Mythical Realms mod, when you're happy with your mod and you want to make it public, you see on the right hand side there is owner controls, and the second to last one is change visibility. So then you can change it. You can change it from private or hidden to public when you're ready to go public with your mod. So you can upload it to Steam privately to just test it on Steam and fiddle around with it. And when you're ready to go public with it, you can change it there. That's the only way to do that, because once you have uploaded it to Steam, you can't change it from within the game anymore. You got to do it from within Steam.
Usually it doesn't take too long for simple mods to go, but I have had it take a while, so we may or may not get to see it. It's this one here. I guess they've updated. And then what you have to do, well, actually, I'm not sure how this works, but what I end up doing is then I would delete, once I know that it's up there and I can subscribe to it, I'll delete. So oddly enough, I'm not even subscribed to my own mod because I update it so much that I just don't want there to be a conflict. That's only the issue when you're the author, of course, and trying to use your own mods. The other thing is whether or not it went. Usually there's a way that it will show if it's kind of in process, because there's been some issues when we were first testing this out to be able to get it to upload. All right, for some reason it shows up here when I go to my mods.
There we go.
I guess just because that was the public display in there, so I had to go into my own profile.
So if you wanted to make it public now, you'd go to change visibility to change it there.
So I could change it. Let's just do that for fun, and then we can go back. So I've subscribed. Let's see, and that might even take a moment to show up.
Yeah.
So gotta just let Steam do its thing. Sometimes you have to restart Steam. You know, Steam is Steam.
So once you've subscribed to it, if you want to make changes to your mod, you need to make changes to it where Steam has moved it to.
You can, but the problem is then you can't re-upload it. So you still want everything to be in this mod folder that has the mod name. So since it's complete, what I would do is I would take this and I would move it to somewhere else. So for example, I have my mod projects, completed mods, and you know, I could just say, oh, okay, I'm done with this, so let me go ahead and move it here. And then that way, if there's an issue or something later on, oh, okay, I've got the folder, I make the changes here, and then I put it back in here, and then I go through the publish process again, republish it to update it, just make sure I update like the version number.
Yep.
And then hopefully whatever changes you made work, otherwise you're back to troubleshooting. So also, let's see, one of the things here too, I just want to go quickly back into the game because it's pretty smart with everything with regards to the mod managing. So I subscribed to the mod, but I also then deleted it out of the mods folder because Steam puts it in some convoluted path with a big long number and all that. But now it's here, so you know it would recognize whether or not, you know, if it was there, because I've subscribed and it was the same name, it left me already subscribed. But if I deleted it, gone in, and then subscribed, I would have to re-enable it. That's the only weird thing. So, but that's it. So that's basically how to do a hero and covers most of the bases. I don't know if there's anybody else that had questions, but that pretty much used most of our time, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's excellent. And you know, it's, you know, I wouldn't say it's necessarily easy, but if you follow through the guide, then you should be able to make your own hero. And then once you get a feel for it, I think modding other things will come naturally or easily, or I hope. Anyway, for all of you watching this on Twitch, maybe you missed the beginning or the first 10 minutes or anything like that. I'm going to upload this to our official YouTube channel, and then it will be on there. And then at some point, I'll give the link to Xeth, and I'm sure he'll be able to include it in his guide to help you guys through it. Because, you know, sometimes a wall of text isn't, you know, it doesn't work for everybody. So hopefully this guide will enable all of you to get stuck in and have a go at this and put your very own hero into the game, which I think is very cool. Anything else you want to say?
No, but if you need help, I would also recommend joining the Discord, since we have one set up for that. And you know, we talk about mods there if you need some help, because there's lots of other modders active there too, people that know more than I do, in particular about the scripting. And then I want to give a big thanks to the people that have helped, especially the Muha staff, because they've definitely helped me with lots of my mods. So shout out to all of them, and hope they keep making more stuff that we can mod in the future.
Cool. Any final questions from anybody in the chat? I'll give them 15 seconds. I'm a generous god.
Gotta play the Jeopardy music.
No, okay, I think we're going to call it there. That has been What Is Your Mod? And I guess this time, the mod is your mod. Your very own mod. So, hopefully, this is an opportunity for many people to make their very first mod. Oh, there is one question. Is there a maximum number of heroes the game will allow? As far as I know, no. Do you want to correct me on that one, Xeth?
If you're talking about modding, I haven't hit the limit yet, and I've got, with my update coming, it'll be 42 extra heroes. So
I'm pretty sure that the answer is no. There's a maximum number of heroes you can actually have summoned on your side, which is 6. But I think the list can. I would be willing to bet that the list will go as deep as 256. Which, good luck making that many.
I would say even probably bigger than that. Yeah, it depends on whatever mathematical bit value they've used to determine that.
Yeah, but no, you can knock yourself out if you want to make, you know, an entire armies of units. You can.
Yes, because it's the same thing. It just considers it another unit, and there's already, you know, what, 200 plus units in the game.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the limit's got to be really high.
Yeah, making just another unit is sort of very similar process to this as well. Okay, all right, that is it for What Is Your Mod. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you, Edmund.